Well, Israel's parliament has voted to approve a bill that would designate the UN's Agency for Palestinian Refugees as a terrorist organization. The bill also calls for a complete severing of ties from UNRWA. Israel previously said UNRWA employees took part in the October 7th attacks, but an independent review concluded there's no evidence to back that claim. The bill still needs to clear several more steps before being implemented. Well, Chris Gunness is a former UNRWA spokesman, and he joins us now live from London. Sir, a good day. Want to get your reaction, first and foremost, to the Israeli Knesset approving this draft bill on declaring UNRWA a terrorist organization.
Well, there is absolutely no evidence, as provided by the independent Kelowna report, which investigated these allegations. It was very clear that Israel has produced absolutely no evidence for these allegations. So the Israeli parliamentary Knesset moves are based on the mother of all lies, as far as I'm concerned. There is no evidence against UNRWA. And let me be clear, it is the UN General Assembly, the community of civilized nations, that gives UNRWA its mandate, and only the UN General Assembly can change that mandate. So it is not a question of one UN member state that's gone rogue, that decides that it's going to end the mandate of UNRWA. That's not how it works. So I'm afraid to say that UNRWA's life-saving work, given what we saw yesterday, must and will continue. And that is a determination which ultimately rests with the General Assembly of the United Nations, where there are nearly 200 member states.
And I want to talk to you about those overnight horrific scenes that we simply, cannot be unseen. The attack on the makeshift tent camp housing internally displaced persons that was recently established, I understand, near an UNRWA warehouse because it was designated as a safe area. I mean, at this stage, does the responsibility to protect, the responsibility to prevent atrocities even apply anymore to Gaza?
Well, let's talk about the responsibilities of the 153 state parties to the Genocide Convention. Let's talk about the responsibilities of the 124 signatories to the Rome Statute, which sets out the rules of war according to the International Criminal Court. Now, the ICJ just a few days ago made it very clear through its provisional instructions that Israel has to call off its Rafah offensive. Just 3 days later, what do we have? We have this outrageous attack. It was clearly disproportionate. It was clearly indiscriminate, and it took place in an area designated as a safe zone by the Israeli army. I hope, and I'm sure, that the United Nations agencies and other international workers working with Palestinian partners are gathering evidence, and I would urge that evidence to be sent immediately to The Hague, to the International Court of Justice, which has made it clear that people need to be protected from these genocidal attacks. And I would hope that the 153 state parties to the Genocide Convention, who have an obligation to make sure that that convention is implemented in full, I hope it is urging robust action from that court. And as far as the ICC is concerned, Karim Khan, the prosecutor at the ICC, has made it clear that he would like to see arrest warrants for Yoav Gallant and Benjamin Netanyahu. They will have been completely briefed on this attack. They will know that there were hundreds and hundreds of people, innocent civilians, in makeshift tented areas near to a UN facility when this attack took place. They would know that the military advantage, killing 2 Hamas operatives, which apparently is what they say they have done, does not justify an attack. There has to be a distinguishing between combatants and non-combatants. The weaponry used has to be proportionate to the military advantage. None of that in this case was followed, and I hope that the ICC and the ICJ will act immediately and robustly, because this is a blatant violation of their own rules of war.
What is become now painfully clear is that UNRWA places are also no longer safe havens. I mean, the organization is in the crosshairs, but also the schools and all the other establishments that were previously run by UNRWA are now fair game, it seems.
Well, this is the tragedy, that hundreds of thousands of people thought that they could take refuge under the light blue UN flag. They thought that if they came to international facilities, that they would be safe. And what has Israel done? It has said no, nowhere is safe in Gaza. And that's why it's so important that the offensive must be called off immediately and that international justice must run its course. I'm sure that the three judges at the pre-trial chamber in the ICC, that Karim Khan is asking for these arrest warrants against Gallant and Netanyahu, I'm sure those three judges are as horrified as the rest of the world about these attacks. And let us pray that in the most appalling circumstances, what we're now seeing is pressure building up for these arrest warrants to go out. And let us pray that those countries, those members of the civilized nations in the world will realize that they have responsibilities to implement these conventions which they have signed up to. So let us pray that we're now going to move forward with arrest warrants against Gallant and Netanyahu. They need now to become wanted war criminals. And let us pray that the International Court of Justice will realize that we're now seeing blatant disregard for the Genocide Convention. There is no exception to the Genocide Convention. You can't say, well, Hamas was sending rockets from this area. No, there are no excuses. This is the crime of crimes. It brooks no exception. And we have to be very clear about this. It's not good enough for the Israelis to turn around and say, well, we killed 2 Hamas people, they fired rockets into Tel Aviv. No, the Genocide Convention is absolute, and these provisional measures brook no exception.
Chris Gunness, former UNRWA spokesperson, joining us from London. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.